The stars over Epsilon Tria churned like a restless sea. Below them, the Valkyrie drifted silently, her black hull soaking in the void like a wound that refused to heal. Inside the command deck, Captain Elara Vance stood stiffly behind the helm. 32 years old, yet the weight in her blue-gray eyes spoke of battles older than her bones. Her hands, calloused and sure, gripped the console edge as she stared out at the holographic battlefield. "Multiple contacts inbound," Lieutenant Harrow said, voice flat but wired with tension. "Crexan warflight, 12 carriers. Maybe more cloaked." The ship's AI, Nyx, flickered a warning into the air, engagement imminent. Recommended action evasion. Elara exhaled slowly. "We hold position." The bridge fell into a stunned silence. Even the newer recruits, green and eager days ago, understood what it meant to face the Crexan fleet head-on. These weren't just enemies. They were apex predators of the Orion Arm, civilizations older than humanity's first cities, armed with weapons that could fold space itself. But they feared one thing: human warships. "Orders confirmed," Harrow said quietly. The hum of the ship deepened, shields surging like a beast taking its first breath before the kill. On the distant edge of the star system, the Crexan armada shifted formation. Their carriers peeled wide, scanning, searching, yet never crossing the invisible line that separated them from the Valkyrie. They knew. "They're hesitating," Harrow muttered. He looked at Elara, confusion etched across his face. "Why?" Elara's lips barely moved. "They remember Titan's wake." A flicker across the holotable showed a replayed memory, the Battle of Titan's Wake, 5 years prior. One human dreadnought, Horizon's Fall, against a fleet of 70 Crexan warships. None survived. None except the human vessel, crippled but defiant, drifting through the ashes of its enemies. No footage ever showed what really happened inside that ship. No salvage crews ever found its black box. But the Crexans remembered, and they whispered. "Never scan a human warship. Never provoke them to full capacity. Not if you want your stars to stay lit." A low vibration stirred beneath the crew's boots. The Valkyrie's weapon systems, sleeping giants until now, began their slow awakening cycle. Elara triggered the comms. "This is Captain Vance of the Terran Defense Vanguard. You have violated the Epsilon Accord. Retreat immediately or be engaged." Static. Then a voice, gravelly, inhuman, heavy with restrained rage. "We expected a negotiation." Elara smiled thinly, no warmth in it. "You miscalculated." She cut the transmission before they could respond. Harrow stared at her. "Captain, if we fire first..." "We won't need to," she said, nodding toward the tactical readout. The Crexan ships were backing off. Not a panicked retreat, calculated, wary, like beasts abandoning a poisoned river. They had scanned the Valkyrie. Or at least tried. Because when Crexan scanners brushed the hull, they didn't just pick up mass and energy signatures. They touched something else. Something buried inside the ship. Something even the Crexans, with all their vaunted intellect, dared not awaken. "Report," Elara ordered, voice steady. Nyx responded in a tone eerily close to human. "External scans detected unauthorized probing attempts. Countermeasures initiated. Adversary fleet has disengaged." The bridge crew exchanged glances, unspoken questions crackling between them. "What countermeasures?" Harrow asked, suspicion slicing through the awe. Nyx didn't answer directly. Instead, an image bloomed in the center hollow, a star, ancient and massive, collapsing into a black hole. "A warning." Elara turned to her crew, voice quiet but absolute. "No questions. No records. Not until command clears it." Because what lay inside every Terran warship now, what the Crexans glimpsed and recoiled from, was classified beyond top secret. Not just experimental weapons. Something older. Something found, not made. And humanity had built their warships around it. A soft alarm pulsed. Another ship approached, this one running Terran ID signatures. The Sparrowhawk, carrying Rear Admiral Saren and diplomatic staff. Elara straightened. Prepare for rendezvous. Harrow, keep weapons primed but silent. If the Crexons return, we don't wait. Understood, Captain? As the Sparrowhawk's docking clamps latched, Alara allowed herself a single glance through the viewport, toward the receding specks of the Crexon fleet. They had tasted humanity's warning without even seeing a single weapon fire. Because to provoke a human warship wasn't to invite battle. It was to summon extinction. And still, somewhere deep in Alara's gut, an unease gnawed at her. Because secrets never stayed buried forever. And whatever humanity had hidden inside its ships might one day turn on them, too. The docking bay hissed open, spilling a wave of sterile white light onto the Valkyrie's shadowed corridors. Rear Admiral Saren emerged first, tall, graying at the temples, his black uniform sharp as a blade. Flanking him were 3 diplomatic officers, their faces carefully neutral, like masks polished smooth by too many negotiations gone wrong. Alara met him halfway, boots clicking sharply against the deck. Captain Vance? Saren said, voice low. Situation report. Now. They probed us, Alara replied, matching his clipped tone. Then they ran. No shots fired. Saren's gaze hardened. And the internal event? Alara's jaw locked. She hated this part, the knowledge they both carried but never spoke aloud in front of the crew. She nodded once, precise. It woke. A shadow crossed Saren's expression. Not fear. Something worse, resignation. Follow me, he said. He led her toward the captain's ready room, sealing the door behind them with an override only admirals could access. The room dimmed automatically, soundproofed. Only then did Saren speak. They know now, he said quietly. The Crexons saw more than they should have. Alara stayed silent. She knew. Once the enemy sniffed at the edges of a secret, even the most fragile alliances shattered. Saren placed a small projector on the desk. A hologram flared to life, an artifact crude in shape but thrumming with unreadable energy. Half stone, half machine, it radiated something old, something that didn't belong to flesh or starship. The core buried inside the Valkyrie. It's not the only one, Saren said. And it's not Terran. Alara frowned. The official briefings. Sanitized lies, Saren cut in. The cores were found in the ruins of Arcadia 9. We didn't make them. We barely understand them. The hologram flickered, showing what looked like a collapsed city. Towers crumbled like ash, strange glyphs etched across broken metal. And we've been installing these things into warships? Alara asked, voice tight. Not we, Saren said. Them. He tapped the projector. The image shifted. Human scientists in sterile suits, their faces blurred by censorship. Overseers with no military insignia. Civilian contractors who answered to no one in the defense vanguard. Black Cell, Saren said grimly. An autonomous branch. Answerable only to Terran High Command. Alara's stomach twisted. You're saying we're carrying alien relics into battle? Blind. Saren's smile was razor-thin. Worse. We're weaponizing them. Outside, the ship rumbled softly, routine, probably. But Alara's instincts screamed otherwise. How unstable are they? She asked. Saren hesitated just a breath too long. Long enough to tell her everything. If disturbed the wrong way, he said finally, they could fold space like paper. Detonate stars. Erase planets. Alara stared at him, blood pounding in her ears. And you didn't think the captains should know? She asked, voice a knife now. If we had told you, Saren said, you would have hesitated. A harsh laugh escaped her, bitter as acid. And hesitation is deadlier than ignorance? In war, yes. The calm line crackled suddenly, urgent, unfiltered. Bridge to captain. Incoming vessels, human signatures, but they're not responding to hails. Alara and Saren locked eyes. In that frozen second she knew. This wasn't random. This was escalation. She was moving before Saren even barked. Go! They burst onto the bridge together. Harrow threw up a live feed on the tactical holo. 4 ships, Terran design, sleek and fast, Raptors, designed for infiltration and fast assault. But their transponders were scrambled, signatures warped. Alara scanned the data. Black cell assets. Saren cursed under his breath. They're here for the core. The bridge tensed like a bowstring. They'll board us, Harrow said, face pale. Extract it. Bury the evidence. Or bury us with it, Alara finished grimly. Options clicked through her mind in ruthless sequence. Fight and risk awakening the core. Surrender and guarantee death. There was only one move left. We go dark, she said. The crew stared at her. Shut down all active systems. Mask life signs. Bleed reactor output to minimum. Let them think we're dead. But if they board, then we fight inside, Alara said, voice iron. And we don't let them touch the core. The crew scrambled into action, practiced hands making a ship's heartbeat slow to a corpse's crawl. Outside, the Raptors prowled closer, sensors combing through the blackness, hunting for a flicker of movement, a whisper of heat. Harrow looked to her. Captain, if we engage and the core. I know, Alara said. The air grew colder, thinner. Artificial gravity weakened as systems powered down. They were shadows now. Ghosts in a dead ship. Time bled into a slow, savage tension. Then, clang. Boarding clamps locked onto the hull. Saren drew his sidearm. No more lies, he said grimly. Alara chambered a round into her rail pistol. No more cowards. The deck shuddered as cutting charges breached the outer doors. And somewhere, deep within the bowels of the Valkyrie, the core stirred again, hungry, aware. Alara tightened her grip on her weapon. They weren't just fighting for the ship anymore. They were fighting for humanity's soul. The Valkyrie's corridors twisted into darkness. Emergency lights flickered blood-red, casting stuttering shadows along the walls. Alara moved first, low, silent, sidearm ready. Saren covered her flank, eyes sharp, every breath calculated. Boots pounded against metal somewhere ahead. The black cell operatives, 6, maybe 8, had breached. Fast, lethal, trained to kill without hesitation. Harrow's voice crackled softly through the comms. 2 teams. Starboard maintenance bay. They're moving toward the core chamber. Alara didn't need to think. Seal the bay doors. Lock them in. Already trying, Harrow said. But they're overriding. Time was collapsing. Choices narrowing. The core couldn't fall into their hands. Alara signaled, 2 fingers slicing the air. Move. She and Saren raced down the corridor, weapons drawn. A distant thud rattled the deck, the Raptors docking another breach point. They're serious, Saren muttered. They're desperate, Alara corrected. Ahead, the sealed blast doors to the core hummed with invisible power. Beyond them, a force humanity barely understood pulsed like a waking heart. A soldier rounded the corner, black armor, visor down, rifle raised. Too slow. Alara fired once, clean, center mass. The body crumpled, armor sparking against the deck. No time to flinch. No time to grieve. Another operative lunged from cover. Saren dropped him with 2 tight shots, expression unreadable. They pressed on. At the core chamber entrance, Harrow's voice cut through. Captain? Core's destabilizing. Radiation spikes off the charts. Alara cursed under her breath. Why? Unauthorized access, Harrow said grimly. They triggered a response. The door shuddered. A deep, groaning sound, like metal mourning its own death. Inside, the core was waking. Alara punched the door release. Override. Captain's code. Access granted. The blast doors cracked open, slow and grinding. Heat slammed against her face, thick and choking. The core hung at the center of the room, no longer inert. It spun now, slow and majestic, fragments of stone and machine orbiting an unseen center. Energy leaked from the seams, blue, silver, colors that didn't exist in any natural spectrum. It was alive. And it was angry. 2 Black Cell operatives were already inside, attempting to install containment clamps around it. Fools! Alara strode in, weapon raised. Step away! She barked. They hesitated. One turned, visor reflecting the shimmering horror behind him. It's too late, he said. His partner dropped a device at the core's base, a pulsar charge, designed to force shut any reactor. Alara didn't think. She fired. The charge detonated early. A silent pulse ripped through the chamber. For a moment, reality twisted. Walls bent inward, air shivered into glassy fragments. Alara staggered, ears ringing. The 2 operatives disintegrated, no blood, no scream. Just gone. Saren hauled her upright. Move! It's breaching! The core expanded, no longer contained by physics. The air thickened, each step a battle against invisible tides. Then it spoke. Not in words. In memory. Alara saw flashes, images that burned behind her eyes. A world of silver plains and burning skies. Creatures of light walking among monoliths that hummed with the birth of stars. A war without weapons. A betrayal without end. The core was a prisoner. A remnant. Left behind by beings so ancient even the Crexans were infants by comparison. And humanity had ripped it from its grave and chained it inside a machine of war. Alara stumbled back, hand clutching her chest. The grief pouring from the core was suffocating. Alara! Saren's voice snapped her back. Fight it! She gritted her teeth, grounding herself in the present, the sharp bite of gunmetal, the smell of burning circuits, the sweat on her skin. This was her reality. Not the core's dream. But it wasn't over. Another surge shook the ship. Bulkheads crumpled inward. Gravity buckled. Through the chaos, Harrow's voice screamed over the comms. Captain? External contacts, Crexan fleet, hundreds of ships. They must have felt the breach. Alara's mind raced. If the Crexans believed humanity had lost control, they wouldn't just retreat this time. They'd annihilate the entire sector to contain the threat. The core spun faster, threads of light lashing out, searching. Saren fired into the ceiling, drawing attention. We have to recontain it. Now! How? Alara demanded, shoving him behind a fallen support beam as another pulse shredded the far wall. Saren pulled a cylinder from his belt, a microcage, a prototype designed for emergencies. It might hold for minutes. Long enough to jettison it. Alara stared at him. You want to eject it into the fleet? Better than letting it wake fully, Saren said grimly. Another blast rocked the chamber. A rupture split the far side, exposing the cold, black sea of stars beyond. No time. No other way. Alara snatched the micro-cage and sprinted toward the core. Each step felt like wading through molten glass. The core sensed her. It reached out, not to attack, but to plead. Remember us. She hesitated. Just for a heartbeat. Then she slammed the cage into the core's gravitational axis. A flash, searing, blinding. The core collapsed inward, screaming without sound, sucked into the containment field. Alara hit the deck hard. The sudden silence was deafening. Saren rushed forward, helping her up. The micro-cage floated between them now, faintly glowing, humming with a sorrow so deep it cut the soul. We jettison it, Saren said. Now. Alara nodded numbly. Together, they dragged it toward the emergency launch bay. Each second stretched longer, harder. Through the viewport, the Crexan fleet loomed, massive, predatory, waiting. Saren keyed the launch sequence. Ready? Alara placed her hand against the cage, just for a moment. I'm sorry, she whispered. Then they fired it into the void. The micro-cage hurtled through the vacuum, a tiny star against the endless night. The Crexans shifted formation, retreating without a single shot fired. They knew. They felt it. And they wanted no part of it. On the bridge, Harrow's voice broke the silence. They're withdrawing. All of them. Alara sagged against the console, exhaustion crashing over her. But relief never came. Because as she watched that small, distant light vanish into the dark, she knew deep down. This wasn't over. Not yet. The silence aboard the Valkyrie was heavier than the vacuum outside. Elara sat slumped in the captain's chair, helmet off, hair damp with sweat. Across the bridge, the crew moved like ghosts, quiet, mechanical. Repairs flickered along shattered consoles. Oxygen levels were stable, for now. The core was gone. The Krexan fleet had fled. But the wound it left behind bled into everything. Rear Admiral Saren stood by the viewport, arms crossed tight against his chest, staring into the black. "They'll come back," he said finally. "Different ships. Different faces. But they'll come." Elara nodded, throat dry. "We woke something bigger than any war." A soft chime broke the tension. Harrow brought up a fresh sensor reading on the main hollow. "Captain," he said slowly, "we've picked up echoes. From deep space. Not Krexan." Elara leaned forward, reading the patterns. They weren't fleet signatures. They weren't even organized. It was like something massive was stirring far beyond known space. A ripple effect. The consequence of touching a grave that should have stayed buried. Saren exhaled hard. "We didn't just alert the Krexans. We rang a bell for things older than memory." Elara rubbed her temples. Fatigue clawed at her, but instinct kept her sharp. "Get me a secure line to command," she said. "We need to warn them." Harrow hesitated. "Captain, about command." Elara's stomach sank. "What about it?" "Transmission incoming," he said, voice brittle. "High priority override." The main hollow shifted. A figure appeared, an old man in a black uniform with no insignia. His face was lined, his eyes sharp and empty. No name. No rank. But Elara knew. Black Cell. "This is Overseer Marek," the man said, voice cold as a blade. "Stand by for recovery protocols." Saren stepped forward. "The core has been jettisoned. The mission's compromised." Marek's eyes flickered, not with anger, but calculation. "Incorrect. Containment was never the objective." The bridge crew froze. Elara straightened slowly. "Then what was?" Marek's smile was thin. "Contact." A chill spidered down her spine. "You wanted it to wake," she said. "We needed it to," Marek corrected. "Humanity has grown stagnant. Divided. Petty. Contact with higher-order entities will force evolution. Or extinction. You gambled with all our lives." Saren barked. Marek shrugged. "Progress requires sacrifice." Elara's hands curled into fists. "You don't understand what you've unleashed," she said. "I understand perfectly," Marek said. "And soon, so will you." The transmission cut. The bridge lights flickered again. This time, not from damage. From interference. New signals poured across the sensor arrays, massive, slow-moving shapes emerging from deep void sectors no human had ever charted. Harrow whispered, "They're coming." Saren grabbed Elara's shoulder, grounding them both. "Orders?" he asked. Elara closed her eyes for a heartbeat, feeling the weight of it. "Fight? Hide? Run?" None would matter. They had stepped onto a stage built by gods and corpses. And humanity's small, brief light was now burning at both ends. Her voice came low but steady. "We hold," she said. "We make them see us. All of us." She keyed the ship-wide comms. "This is Captain Elara Vance," she said. "To every listening ship, every outpost, every soul with a comm array tuned to the stars." She paused, feeling the moment sharpen around her like a blade. "We are not afraid. We will not kneel. If something ancient comes for us, it will find a species that remembers how to fight for its right to exist." Static crackled as her voice carried out into the void. A beacon. A challenge. A prayer. Saren offered a grim smile. "You just picked a fight with the gods." "No," Elara said, eyes locked on the swelling darkness beyond the stars. They picked a fight with humanity. The ship's systems rebooted, one by one. Weapons came online. Shields shimmered back into place. The Valkyrie, battered and bloodied, turned her prow toward the incoming unknown. Ready. Waiting. Across the fractured space of human colonies, other warships stirred, old, wounded, but unbroken. Signals flashed. Allies answered. A fleet was being born. Not of conquest or pride, but of survival. For once, humanity stood together, not as fractured nations, but as one species. And above them, the void shivered. Shapes emerged, vast, impossible, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. But the Valkyrie did not flinch. Elara rose to her full height, one hand resting against the cold steel of the helm. Let them come, she said. Because whatever crossed that black gulf to reach them, whatever ancient mind or monstrous will thought humanity would bow, they would find something no probe, no scan, no ancient memory could ever predict. The human spirit. Defiant. Relentless. Unbreakable. As the first of the impossible ships drifted into view, dwarfing the largest Krexan dreadnoughts, the Valkyrie lifted her guns and spoke in the oldest language of all. We are here. We are not afraid. Come and see.